Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss the latest on Kemi Badenoch's plan to somehow turn the Conservatives' fortunes around by following in the footsteps of Liz Truss. I mean, fair play to her for thinking outside the box. Most Conservatives tried to emulate the success of Margaret Thatcher, who was a bit of an election winner for them. It takes a special sort of visionary to say, no, Liz Truss, that's the model we should use. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel. So, week before last, Kemi Badenoch was completely turned over in PMQs after Starmer was able to point out that the new Conservative leader supported Labour's spending plans, but not the means by which they were paid for. The magic money tree accusation was deployed to good effect against her. And rather than go back to the drawing board and work on a more credible strategy, Kemi Badenoch seems to be doubling down. The Mirror have been reporting calculations which show that under her leadership, the Conservatives have committed billions of pounds worth of tax cuts or tax breaks for the wealthy, which is fairly normal, but without saying what spending she would cut or what alternatives she has for raising the same money elsewhere. In other words, Badenoch has committed her party to billions of pounds of unfunded tax and spending plans. This is, of course, what sunk Liz Truss. She arranged for a mini budget which didn't care about making the figures add up, and so investors began to wonder if the UK would be able to honour its debt in future years, and the loss of confidence nearly caused a run on the pound and wiped out a lot of value from people's pension pots. So Badenoch has said she will reinstate the tax break on private school fees. She will reverse the new rules on inheritance tax for wealthy tax-dodging landowners. Because note that even if Labour improved their plans to avoid clobbering genuine family farmers, Badenoch would still reverse the tax rules for non-farming rich land squatters. She also said she'd reverse the moves on capital gains tax and the windfall taxes. And all this sounds very Tory, of course. All moves which help the very wealthy avoid taxes. But come the election, she's going to have to say how she'll balance the books, so to speak. And at present, she's refusing to do that. She doesn't want to talk about cuts to spending because what Labour are spending the money on is going to be popular even with Conservative target voters. But she feels the need to attack Labour, and quickly, because, you know, if any of their popular moves become tangible, it'll be much more difficult to do so. I imagine she also feels the need to move quickly, as some in her own party don't even think she'll last until the next election, much less beyond it. But she's making the same mistakes as Sunak. She's trying to be all things to all people, but being nothing to anyone. If you think a tax cut would form part of a popular election strategy, then you have to say what spending you will cut or what alternative revenues you would raise to compensate. If you don't, then at any time you look reckless, but at a time when the devastating impact of Liz Truss's economic ideas are still fresh in people's minds, you look more than reckless, you look downright dangerous to have in government. What is clear is that Badenoch has no plan. It seems increasingly likely that she just intends to react to Labour and somehow muddle her way to the election and hope that they just continue to be really bad at communicating to the public. And it's not like she comes across as being more credible when she's not committing to reversing Labour's tax policies either. So on the most contentious of all, the increase in employers' national insurance contributions. So Badenoch has said that she doesn't like this. Oh, would you reverse it then? I don't know. But she said she would look again. When are you going to look again? In government? Because being in opposition, it's supposed to have the advantage that you can have policies without having to put them to the test before the election. Liz Truss, for example, would not have collapsed with her economic plans if she'd been in opposition, because they wouldn't have been taken seriously at that point. You know, your plans probably ought to be plausible at least, but they don't absolutely have to work. It means that you can base your forecasts on fair winds and say, well, you know, if this happens and this happens and this happens, it'll all add up, and economists will have to go, well, yeah, okay, with those assumptions, yeah, okay. At which point you go, aha, they have said it's fine. Unlike the government, who've got to contend with whatever winds are blowing right now. Yet, despite this advantage of opposition, Badenoch has still decided to map her emerging policy platform on that of Liz Truss. Cut taxes for the rich and just sort of hope that a magic growth tree props up next to the magic money tree. And I've said in the past, Labour should beat the Tories with the Liz Truss stick a lot more. Keep claiming that the Tories want to bring her back as Chancellor. Because you know what? There's not that many Tories will say, no, we don't. Well, if Badenoch keeps this up, Labour may not need to do that. She's basically doing Labour's job for them by heavily promoting the idea of unfunded tax cuts. And it's not even like she's gathered together an otherwise able band for her front bench. Earlier today, Energy Secretary Ed Miliband was pulling the rug out from his climate sceptic funded opposite number Claire Coutinho. She was trying to attack a target which Miliband pointed out that the Conservatives actually set down in their own budget in government and that she had personally backed earlier this year. He then went on to describe a series of other policies she's attacked, despite having exactly the same policies herself until very recently.
Oh dear, oh dear. Okay, let me deal with questions such as they are, Mr. Speaker. Let's start with our nationally determined contribution announced at COP. Yeah. It's so interesting that she now opposes this, because the 2035 NDC announced by the Prime Minister is exactly the target her government legislated for in 2021 in the sixth carbon budget, which covers 2035. Which means she is now opposing, Mr. Speaker, the very same target her government put into law. And she claimed that she was working towards as Secretary of State just a few months ago. And Mr. Speaker, there is a pattern here. Every week, the Right Honourable Lady takes to Twitter to express her latest outrage about a policy, asking who on earth could support this. And every week, someone pops up in her replies and says politely, "You did, just a few months back." Because this isn't the only one, Mr. Speaker. Last week she came out against the clean heat market mechanism, another policy she proposed. In fact, I have what she says. No, I have a statement from her from only 8 months ago, where she said it will be coming in, the clean heat market mechanism, in April 2025. Exactly what this government is doing. And the truth is, Mr. Speaker, any passing bandwagon and she'll leap on it, even if it means trashing her record. And let me give her a little lesson about opposition. The job of opposition is to oppose the government, not to oppose yourself.
It's like that Daily Express headline from like a day or two ago, blaming Labour for giving money to what they called foreign farmers. Only problem is, that funding was from the Conservative government. Because remember, the Labour government haven't really funded very much at all yet. They've announced fundings, of course. They've announced their first budget, but that budget doesn't come into force until next spring. So although there have been some genuine new spending under Labour, such as the public sector pay awards, increase in funds for Ukraine, there's not really much. There's not much they can do until their tax measures come online. Almost everything the media want to complain about regarding funding, which has been allocated at this point, they're Conservative policies. And when Badenoch and her posse are trying to attack Labour for them, what they're actually doing is they're attacking their own government. In fact, if you break it down, I wouldn't be surprised to learn that the Conservatives are now actually spending more time attacking their own record in government, somehow mistaking it for Labour's when Labour haven't actually had the time to implement very much yet, than spent attacking genuine Labour policies. I can't wait for Badenoch to bring up the case of that poor guy. It's in the news, the Telegraph written this piece. Oh, this poor fella. He thinks he might have to sell his 12th century castle to make ends meet. Can't wait for Badenoch to bring that up in PMQs. No doubt whatever she does bring up will be equally ridiculous. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, please click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, you can join for memberships. Thanks for watching. And until next time, I'll see you later.